let's rise and lead like Christ. Lay it down to do what's right. Let's start this day anew once more and show them who we're living for. He said, go and make disciples, baptizing in his name, teaching what he's commanded. He's with us always. Come, let's rise and lead like Christ. Lay it down to do what's right. Let's start this day anew once more and show them who we're living for.
Good morning, Lifebridge family. I know what you're thinking. We thought we were getting a day off from you, and here you are opening up our service. I can't help myself. I miss being with you guys today. Today's going to be a great day. You are going to be hearing stories from different people in our congregation about how being a disciple maker has changed them. See, that's what we've been talking about the past few weeks, is this journey for us individually becoming like him. And the only way we become like him is when we model him, when we model his behavior. We abide in him completely. It's not a legalistic checklist of things that we have to do, but it's a surrendering and dying to self. And as we take on his nature, loving other people, we start to get into this, have this desire of discipling others. So the past few weeks, we've been talking about our organizational statements. And I'm standing in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and just about 100 feet that way is where we came up with these very organizational statements, our vision, bridging the gap between you and God, and our mission, that we are committed to loving God and loving people. All of that took place right over there. All of those things, those statements shape who we are. And so today, you're going to hear stories about how we have lived this out and how our lives are being changed. Hope you guys have an amazing Sunday celebrating God. See you next week.
Hi, my name is Caleb. Through discipleship, I have learned to meet people where they are. I've learned to sacrifice my time, energy, and money for the growth of the kingdom. I've learned God's timing, not mine. I've learned that letting go of someone is okay. I've learned that it's not discipleship unless you're sharing about Jesus and his ministry.
Hello, Lifebridge family. I'm Amanda Sykes, and I am in a discipling relationship with Jamie and Jessica. And Michael asked me to share how I thought the discipling process has helped me grow. And so when we first started doing this years ago, this journey, I wasn't exactly sure of how it would look in my life. Would I have time? I work, things like that. I knew that Jesus, that's what he commands me to do. And the disciples left their jobs and their families. And I don't know if I was ready for that. Michael and I had lots and lots of conversations about this. And I personally didn't think anyone would want to join me in a discipling relationship. I didn't feel worthy. And there were times that it failed. I fell flat on my face and it failed. And at one point I told God, I'm done. This hurts too much. I'm not doing it again. So fast forward to a year or so from then, and I'm in a healthy discipling relationship. I've grown so much in trusting God to give me the courage and the heart to love others. I am accountable with the people I disciple. Studying the word and applying it to my life has made a huge difference to me. It's made me learn to love others where they are and not where I think they should be. That was something hard for me to do. I've learned that it's a process and not a finish and move on. And the really neat part and the freeing part for me was that in this whole thing, I do my part, they do their part, and God certainly does his part.
How has discipling changed me? Well, Romans 12:2 speaks to me as I look back on how discipling has changed me. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. As I've invested time into others in discipling relationships, I've found myself being transformed by the experience into the person God has willed me to be. I now study and seek God's Word not only for my own benefit, but to look at the Word for the purposes of sharing the Word. Discipling has helped me see life through the eyes of others. It's helped me to learn to listen more, to have a sincere concern for someone else's spiritual walk, and it's opened my eyes and ears to points of view that I had never explored before. Seeing someone grow and mature in their faith walk and to see them transform before you is such an encouragement to me. It makes me want to invest in people for the Lord so much more than I had in the past. I know now that not 1 second invested in someone else's spiritual walk is wasted time. It has given me a different purpose to my life and has helped me to seek to even be more obedient to God's will. I've changed and grown so much more through my discipling relationship than those I'm discipling, because sharing God's Word just simply does that. And I am now conscientious of others who are also in discipling relationships, and it's a wonderful thing to watch God's hand in their lives also. But most importantly, I've learned the value of loving God and loving people through sincere, deliberate, and loving relationships. May God continue to transform me into who I need to be for His glory and His kingdom. And I would say that respond to the call of making disciples. It'll be well with your soul.
Hey, I'm Brittany Brown, and I am discipling Mary Lee Vargas. And throughout this journey of discipling a teenager, it's been tons of fun. Just getting the teenage perspective on things as a mother is very valuable. But the way that it's changed me the most is just being accountable to somebody else and learning a Bible study in a way to regurgitate that information and to answer questions and to go through it more thoroughly is just it's valuable to me, and it makes me really read into things more when you have to go over it with somebody else.
I'm Deion Brown. I disciple Griffin Sykes, and for me, it makes me be a better dad, a better husband, a better co-worker. It's been a lot of fun. I think it helps me be a whole lot better person. Perry used to disciple me, and we covered a large portion at one time, in the Bible and books and all that stuff, and to be able to go to discipling a teenager, we've kind of had to step back and look at it from a little shorter perspective of just having maybe one verse or two verses, and it's allowed me though to learn more about that verse and be more prepared with that verse, and it's really helped me memorize verses, and I think that's very good, and it's helped me out tremendously just as much as I'm sure it has him. And just like today at work, I took 30 minutes out of my work schedule to meet Griffin, and it was a swarming mess before I met him, and for that brief 30 minutes it really allowed me to just unwind and just think about God and think about somebody else. And by the time I got back to work, it was all smiles, and so it was good.
As we continue on today with our service, one thing I wanted to mention is there's more people that have been involved in discipling than just the ones you've seen in the videos today in the past 8 years. I know Sherry Yeager's done it. You heard Dion mention Perry, Jackie Hall, Jackie McCann, Katrina, Loretta, Ed, Mike, Dave and Paul have started with the youth group on Wednesday nights trying to help out there. Michelle Cervantes led a group at work. And there's probably somebody that I missed, but I say that to say that there's more people that you can talk to about this than just the people that you've seen in the videos today. A lot of people have been involved in this since we formed the church and started trying to model this. So please feel free to talk to one of them about their experience with this if you've got any questions about it. I don't know about y'all, but it's hard for me to answer questions like, tell me how this has changed you, because I have a really hard time imagining what I would have been like if I would have made different choices. Now, luckily, when Michael asked me to do this, I thought about it and about how discipling people had changed me. And this one's a little bit easier because I've got a definite time period. When we formed the church in 2012 was when we started down this journey, so I could kind of look back at how my Christianity looked prior to 2012 and how it looks now, and base my answers on that. So the first thing, you should see a slide now. I'm sure you've all heard the saying about not being able to see the forest for the trees. Of course, referring to times when we can't grasp the big picture of a situation because we're all tied up in the details surrounding that situation, or we can't see the big picture in our lives because of all the little problems we face every day. And that's what you see here. You can't really see, although I'm saying it the opposite way. My Christianity was like, you can't see the trees for the forest. If you look at that picture, you know there's trees there, but you can't pick one out. All you can see is the collective of the forest. And before 2012, when we started down the road of discipleship, I was busy with church. I taught Sunday school, youth group, filled the pulpit occasionally, helped with work days, vacation Bible school, all those typical church activities. And there's nothing wrong with any of those. They're all ways to bring people to Christ if used properly. And I looked at them, but I looked at them a little off. I looked at them kind of like that picture of the forest. I didn't really see the individuals involved in those things. I really was more concerned about the group. I mean, like most of us, I might ask where somebody was if they missed a couple weeks, or go visit somebody if I knew they were in the hospital or had some situation going on. But I never found out too much about any particular individual. I just kept looking at the group and how the group was doing, growing or not growing, or spreading out like the forest in the picture. But now, let me see a different slide. I think about it like this. So practicing discipling, as Jesus did with the original 12, allows you to see the trees in the forest of Christianity. Being in a couple of men groups and meeting with some people one-on-one over the last few years has given me a chance to see how people have gotten to where they are in life. And I think Sherry mentioned it about giving me a chance to see why they think differently about some things than I do, or maybe why we think alike in some areas. It's given me a chance to hear about things that are going on in people's lives that I would never hear about just talking to them on Sunday mornings or at events, or even maybe in a small group sometimes. And Jesus spent time with people, and he taught his followers to spend time with people. So when I take the time to do that, I'm following his examples. Now, I've got a couple of quick biblical examples to share. The first one comes from Mark chapter 5. It's the story of the woman who touched Jesus' cloak. I'll be reading from Mark 5, verses 25 through 34. And a woman who was there had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out of him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" You see the people crowding against you, his disciples answered, and yet you asked, who touched me? But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Now I want to focus on a couple of verses, 31 and 34. Jesus didn't have to stop and talk to the woman, right? He had already healed her, and he obviously knew that he had already healed her. But he wasn't looking at the crowd around him and thinking about what he needed to do for them. Jesus knew that she needed something besides healing. She was still afraid, and she needed some encouragement right then. She needed to know that he cared about her. He saw that need, and he took the time to provide that. Again, he didn't stop to think about the crowd around him at the moment. He worried about her above them. Now, I'm sure Jesus would have loved to speak to everyone in the crowd like that, but he couldn't. But what he could do was take the time to know and encourage one person, that woman, and knowing that that act would change her life and probably others' lives as well. So my next story comes from the first few verses of Luke 1, 3, and 4. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, that you might know for certainty the things that you have been taught. The book of Luke was really written as a letter to a friend. I never thought about that a lot. I guess I knew it, but I hadn't thought about it. And Luke wanted to make sure that his friend Theophilus understood the message of Christ so that he would be saved, and also so that he could use it to teach others. Now, I'm sure Luke wanted to teach a crowd, but because he took the time to write a letter to a friend, think how many people's lives had been changed. It'd be interesting to know how many friends the Galilean woman told about her healing and Jesus' encouraging words to her, and how many were saved because of that moment. Just like you probably couldn't count the number of people that have read the book of Luke and been saved because of that. Now, Andy Stanley, if you don't know him, he's a preacher at a large church over in Atlanta, and he's Charles Stanley's son, who was another famous Baptist preacher. He has a saying that I've kind of taken to heart since we started emphasizing relationships in the church. And that saying is, do for one what you wish you could do for all. And that's what Jesus did. There's a lot of examples in the New Testament of that I could have shared. So if Jesus did this, and we know he did it, what holds us back from doing for one what we wish we could do for all? Well, for me, and I think it's true in general, I think Amanda mentioned it in her video, I didn't really think I had much to offer anybody else. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not super humble or anything. But I just looked around and saw that most people were doing as well or better than me, so how could I be a very effective disciple maker if I didn't have any more answers than they did? Michael talked about that a couple of weeks ago also, that we're often have a fear that we're going to lead somebody astray if we start trying to disciple. But what I finally come to realize is that people aren't looking for answers from me most of the time. They're just happy that I'm there, wherever there happens to be. God will provide the answers. In fact, he's already written the letter. I'm just the postman, or I may not even be the postman. I may just be the envelope or the stamp. Me thinking that I don't have anything to offer is like the UPS man thinking that he doesn't have anything to offer. But we all get excited when we see that UPS truck turn down our street. And we get really excited, and we're really grateful when he actually stops in front of our house. And that's what I have to offer, the package that God has sent for that person, which is Jesus Christ. So that's how discipling relationships have changed me. It's shown me the importance of individual relationships in the church. And I think that's especially true for men. That's a long topic for another time. But it's also shown me not to try to change people, but that's up to God. I can only show them what God has done for me and help them see what he can do for them. And that's what Jesus did. He didn't present a bunch of facts and doctrine to most people. He just took the time to see what people needed, and he showed them the way toward it. You know, there's an old quote that said, to know me is to love me. And I couldn't find the origin of that. I think most everybody would agree that you can't really love someone without really knowing them and knowing them well. In John 13:35 it says, "By this everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another." So I think the New Testament makes it clear that we should be in relationships, close relationships with our Christian brothers and sisters, because that's how we come to love them, and that's why it's part of our mission statement. That's how people will know that we'll really care about them, and that's what God asks of us, to care about each other. Thanks, and have a great day.